What's going on, everybody? My name is Hobson Randall McCain III, and I am here to you today with one of my good friends, Daryl Jones. How you doing, Daryl?
I'm good. How you doing, man?
I'm
How you
doing well.
doing,
I'm
Hob?
doing well. Daryl is the host of the Less of a Man podcast, and these are his co-hosts here. If you want to introduce them, I know I switched up the order. I just made
Yeah.
it's all
No,
good.
it's no order. I'm the Beyonce of the group, and they're
Oh,
the not
really?
Beyonce.
Ah,
So,
Wow.
let it be
Okay.
known. Let it be known.
so yes,
All right.
I'm the
Want
host
some
of the
Kelly?
Less
That's
of
all
a
that
Man.
matters.
Yeah, I'm the host of Less of a Man podcast. These are my co-hosts. This is Shamorg Miller. Edward, for some reason, we call him EJ on the podcast. Cook and Rod and Lord. So we all come together. We have our podcast where we discuss basically the life through a Black male. So we talk about mental health. We talk about toxic masculinity. Are we protecting Black women? Voting, police interactions. So we have we talk about lost relationships. So we talk about different views from a Black male. And it's more barbershop. So we don't take ourselves too seriously. We joke around a lot, but we talk about serious topics as we're joking around.
Yeah. So welcome, you guys. We appreciate y'all joining us here today. Like I said, my name's Hobson. I'm host of Woke and Restless Podcast. And with me, we have the head of Woke and Restless Black Women, Bria Harrison. We just made that title up.
Right.
He literally just made that
Yeah,
up
we
like
just made that
that.
up like 15 minutes
I was
ago.
like, we are
But
branching
we
off,
rocking with it.
Hobson.
Yeah, no, we rocking with it. That's our thing.
That's
How
going
you, how you doing, Bria?
I'm good. How y'all? You're just making stuff up.
Hey, we gotta roll with the punches sometimes.
That's big shoes
Yeah,
to
no.
We
fill.
do. I've been out here like 3 times now, so
Yeah, so,
it
um,
fits.
Yeah, so Woke and Restless is basically just a podcast built around Black commentary and politics and just having necessary conversations within the socio-political and economic world that we feel that Black people generally don't get that perspective from. So we have those conversations. We release episodes every 2 weeks. We have a Facebook page that we'll link at the end. But we wanted to link up with Less of a Man because we love what they've been doing with their episodes and you guys have like lessons and stuff like that where you guys are, teaching folks how to be better people and all this,
Man.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic. It's fantastic. But if you guys don't know, I have a co-host. His name is Kermit. He's in law school right now, so he's in and out whenever he's available. But we have always wanted to do a panel on interracial relationships within the Black community. Reason being, obviously, the tension between the Black and the white community right now. I won't say it's at an all-time high because slavery and history, but it's pretty significant right now, right? So we just wanted to kind of have a conversation about where Black people, Black men, Black women, where our heads are in terms of dealing with Black people. 1, in the workplace. 2, in your personal lives, and then 3, in like a romantic sense, and just how that fits within Black culture. So I know we're going to start it off with the workplace. And, everybody here is, working, been in a corporate setting or been in a work setting with white people at one point or another. I know that I'm a paralegal, so I guess I'll start off with my little personal antidote. But I'm a paralegal and I work at a predominantly white law firm. I'm a collection paralegal, so that is what it is. But I talk to a lot of Black people every day, but I don't see them very much because of what I do. So it's always interesting to me, especially on like your first few days going into the office and kind of like reading out, you have like that period where you're just kind of like scoping everything out, acknowledging the other Black people, like, hey, what's up? And then like, there's always that moment where like the Black people get together. I know me and my roommate worked at the firm, and we got together with the one other Black dude at the firm, and it was just like, all right, give it to me straight. Like, what's what around here? Who can we rock with? Who can we not? Do you guys have those kind of like interactions with, do you have that safe place with Black people in your workplace, or, how do white people make you feel welcome when you first introduced to a work environment?
Well, I'll go first. So I work for a software company,
Mm-hmm.
and at one point for like 2 years, I was the only Black male at the office. So it was strange because when I first navigated corporate, I realized that white people don't know how to talk to us, and most of them never really been around black people, or they showed that they've never been around black people. I had one person quoted me Kanye West lyrics and then got mad that I didn't know the lyrics. And I'm like, we're not sitting around like gossiping about Kanye West and all. Like, that's not what we're all doing. But what you said was kind of funny because once more black people came, it would be a space where all the black people would just hang out. Like, we were all talking, and then we could really, like, we have our slang and our code language of how we talk. And we felt like at that space, we could be us. Because once we go to corporate, we got to put on, as black people, we have to put on a face all the time. And as soon as we get to work, I have to put on a face. If I do anything, I'm the angry black man, or I have an attitude, or I'm hood or whatever. And we have to put on a face. So we have to have these pockets where we can kind of be ourselves. Yeah. So quick story, I'm gonna let somebody go after I tell the story. The guy, one of the guys that I work with came to me, a white guy. He was like, I heard about code switching, heard y'all talking about code switching. What does that mean? And I explained to him, I was like, code switching basically is we have to act a certain way in front of white people. And he was like, he said, I want you to know that you don't have to code switch with me. And I said, with all due respect, yes, I do. and they just don't understand us in a sense, is what I learned working in corporate America. I'll let somebody else go.
I'll go next. I've been an engineer going on about probably 15, 16 years now. And I've been in various engineering, I guess, roles as far as that, me being the only black person in my group, and as well as being in a very diverse team. Definitely when I was in a more diverse team, it was definitely easier to interact with white people. And then of course, it's still the same thing. Whenever you go to a new job, all the black people search out for the black people. And of course, we have our own language that we kind of keep amongst ourselves. But I can honestly say in my first two roles, it was actually a pleasant experience when it came to working with my white counterparts. So I didn't really run into any issues in those roles. Now, when I went in my roles when I was the only black individual, not necessarily the only black individual in the facility, but just the only black individual that was in management, it was almost like I was in the house and everybody else was in the field in a sense, because everybody, I was on the floor. The majority of the manufacturing workers were black, and here I am, coming to them as a manager. Is almost like they look at me differently only because I'm in management. Yeah. So in those particular roles, I had a hard time convincing my counterparts that, okay, I am black, promise me, just because I'm, with the in the house doesn't mean that I can't roll with y'all type vibe. So that was kind of my experience being in that type of environment. So I've had it both ways and also I could think of a story that I had working at this company in Greenwood, where we was all in the office one day, and we were talking about, a white guy was talking about another white guy, and the way he said, man, that cracker get on my nerve, I can't stand that cracker. And I'm like thinking, can white folks say that in front of me?
That almost offends me.
When I'm back here, what do you use to describe me? Just kind of how I felt, with that story. But so I've had it, both ways, where I've been in a diverse environment, which was the best for me, and then the environment where, I'm the only I'm black guy on the team. So
you were right saying white guy.
I know you're gonna say something. I will wait for you to say.
I guess. All right. For me, I've had it mostly, both ways. I've worked in a lot of industries, so I'll say for being a supervisor at Starbucks, it's different. It's very diverse, and I feel like the people are more culturally aware there. Mm-hmm. They pay attention to what's going on in the climate, so they try to adjust and they try to actually ask questions to understand, as opposed to like assuming, right? I've also worked for Delta, where the airline industry is predominantly white with flight attendants. You see black flight attendants, but predominantly it's a white industry. That's where we actually had to create our own groups to be able to associate with other black airline industry workers. There was a point where we weren't allowed to wear Black Lives Matter pins. So committee together to run it through, and eventually they are supporting that cause as well. So I've had it on both sides. There is code switching, of course, that happens because even in the airline, and especially in the airline industry, you saw that you were treated a little bit differently, not only by other flight attendants, but also by the that were flying. So you kind of have to figure it out. But I think it works well when you're able to kind of come together. So at least you feel like secure, you feel supported. So
yeah. So I didn't mean to. I know Rodden and Bria didn't get to tell y'all stories. I don't know if we're doing like an anecdotal story before every conversation, but a few things, that I thought was really funny was that we all talked about code switching in some sense. And I remember when I was coming up, especially when right when I graduated college and I was trying to get a job, my dad was very prominent about telling me, make sure I got a very, nice professional haircut, make sure that, he would even suggest that I just go places that, cause I wanted to work at a law firm. He was like, just go places that lawyers have lunch and be dressed in a, real nice suit and, present yourself in a way that is acceptable. And to me, it was like present your way in a way that's acceptable to them. Because if you guys know, I'm a former athlete. While I'm very articulate and I feel like I'm pretty smart, I don't necessarily enjoy, getting all what I call professionalized. So, I was kind of resistant to that idea, but as soon as I started doing it, interviews and stuff start coming in. So, do you think that like we as Black people should have to, hold back parts of ourselves, whether it be because, I got little twists now and stuff like that. And some people would say, if I'm going into a job interview, this is not a good look, right? Yeah. So should we have to worry about things of that nature, really simple things that don't affect our capability to perform a job, but it's just something that's ingrained in society?
Well, I've told myself I'm not code switching anymore when it comes to like jobs and stuff, because like even with my hair, like obviously I'm natural, and being a Black woman and navigating through corporate America is different. As far as being a woman as a whole, you're perceived as how you look. And I'm from Houston, Texas. I have accent. I know I have accent. I speak well, but I have an accent. And I moved from Texas to Florida, and I didn't realize how much of an accent I had until I did that. And I was just like, well, it's not going anywhere. And I'm 27 years old, and I've gone through working in corporate America. And when I actually moved to Atlanta, I told myself that I'm going to go on my interviews with my hair, because if a job won't hire me because of my natural hair, then it's not a job that I want to be in to begin with. If they can't see the beauty of diversity and true diversity, then it's not even a place in which I would want to have to go to every day. Like I said, there's obviously a difference between being professional and then being in common spaces. So I'm always professional, but feeling like I have to code switch, I refuse to do that, because either you're going to accept me for who I am and understand that I can do my job with my hair looking the way it looks, or you're going to look past it. To the point to where even me and Hobson, I showed him my resume because I got let go due to COVID. And so, I've been applying to jobs, and I actually have my picture on my resume, and I'm a graphic designer in wellness. So it's a little different. It's rather than typical corporate America, but he saw my picture on it and he was just like, well, I didn't think Black people did that. And I was just, well, I'm Black. It's like when they ask you a question, what are you? I put Black. I'm obviously a female. It's either you're going, I'd rather them look at my resume and say, no, I don't want her, than to waste my time for me to go in. And I know other Black people see it different, because well, I at least want to get a foot in and then I change myself. But it's I don't feel like I should even have to do that to begin with, because it automatically puts a certain preference on myself, especially as a Black woman. If I go in with a wig on, they're going to be expecting a wig, So the moment, and I've had this happen, the moment that I don't wear a wig, they're looking like, I don't know who that is, and it creates a whole nother issue than me just I look the same, I sit in the same place every day, but the minute I change my hair, it's and so I just really decided I'm not code switching anymore. And if you can't accept Bria for who she is and what she looks like, then, especially at my old job, it was apparent that they were trying to fill like a diversity quota, because when I got hired, it wasn't that many Black people. And then it ended up being a bunch of Black people, and then they laid off people. So, first in, first out. I mean, last in, first out. So that's how, that went. But yeah, I do understand why Black people feel the necessity to. I just decided for myself that I'm not.
I just think the irony is that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, for me, I've been in jobs where it's been diverse, and it's never like corporate America. My last 2 jobs, especially the one I have now, they've all been predominantly Black, especially Atlanta Police Department's 75% Black. So, I mean, I do have instances where people feel like you shouldn't say certain things. Like, I say nigga a lot, and I say it in the office. I don't care, and I say it around white people, and they be like, "Yo, there's white people around," and I'm like, I don't care. What the fuck, nigga.
First of all, can we say, are we good at cussing?
I didn't realize that.
Okay, I don't want to keep
for it.
No, for real. Like, I did that one day. I think I was talking to my homeboy, and I was like, "Nigga, shut up!" And it was like, just like white people. They were like, "I don't give a fuck, nigga." What they gonna do? Complain to OPS about something? So that's fine. I'll go to OPS, and what they gonna tell me?
I think we get a counter on this for this episode on how many times we're only gonna say the N word. Actually,
hey, we can't. We need to put one right in the top right corner. We might do that. But that's funny. That's funny you say that, because me and Kerm actually had a conversation about whether or not, like, we thought it was okay for Black people to say the N word in the workplace. And the reason we brought this up is because, and obviously I'm not going to give any details because I'm not trying to put nobody on the spot, but a place that I was previously employed, they were very, very comfortable. They were all white, very comfortable with each other, very like friendly atmosphere, very family-like atmosphere. So, they would walk around the office, and, I think we can recognize that white people tend to joke a little bit differently than Black people do, especially, in settings where generally we wouldn't be making jokes. At work, that's not really a place where I'm about to be cracking out all my raunchy jokes, right? But, at this job, people were comfortable doing that. But me and Kerm were there, and we just had the conversation, like, we're obviously allowed to curse. We're good to curse, and we're good to, like, make jokes and stuff. But if we, in conversation with each other, use the N-word, would that present a problem? And my Kerm was like, we should be able to use it 100%. 100%. Like that's we've changed it to mean what we have it mean, and like it's a camaraderie term for us, and that's something that we hold dear. So in conversation with ourselves, in conversations with our friends and stuff like that, if we want to use that word, then cool. I, on the other hand, was like, nah, that's dead. Like, because I just believe that at a certain level, you're going to be making someone uncomfortable. In order to do business with people, they have to be comfortable with you. And whether we like it or not, white people got money right now. So if Black people want to elevate and get to that same level of status, people do need to be comfortable with you to a certain extent, right? So where's that balance? Like,
I think it comes with your job. I mean, I have a job where what are they going to do to me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it's like working in corporate America, and you make it.
Yeah.
Like, police aren't accountable.
I don't know if that's really a good example to use. Say that.
No, I mean, in the workplace, what are they gonna do to me if I say it? You know what I mean? If I make you uncomfortable,
you're different
right.
than us in the office.
So that's what I'm saying. It depends. I guess it depends on the atmosphere that you're working in, like the field you're working in. So I mean,
I think it's also for the comfort of the person as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's also for the comfort of the person as well. Like, you kind of got to, not only you have to gauge the white people you work with, you also got to gauge the Black people you work with as well. So if you get to the point that you have that type of comfort level with the person that you're working with, like me personally, I try not to use the word, but one's gonna slip every now and again, just because it only explains the situation I may be in at the time. So
Did you ever say that word?
I ain't heard you ever say that.
Ever say it.
But let me tell you, there was I think it also depends. We should depict if we're going to use the word or not. As long as we do it, I'm fine. Like you said, Carmen is great, and you said, like me, on the workplace, I don't, and listen, I say nigga a lot, but I try not to say it because there's no other word to me that says you used to be property than that word. So for me personally, I try to stay away from it, but I'm not mad at anybody who does it. So like for me, because I work in computers, every time I tell somebody use the incognito window, I have to tell myself, don't say incognito. Like, don't, like, I have to keep and I was like, it slipped one time, but it was to a black person, but
so
it was like,
ended up being hilarious.
Yeah, it was funny when that happened, but I knew it was going to happen, but I'm proud of you, Bri. If it got to the level that you're not going to do it, I still feel like I'm very cautious.
Well, part of mine is too, like, as a Black woman, we get certain stereotypes put on us that y'all don't get, you know?
Absolutely.
And it's like, I remember this has to do with the workplace, but I was like 20, in my early 20s, because I was like, it was like a summer, and I went home, and me and my friends went out to eat. And I remember we received some of the worst service I've ever received in my life. But it's because the waitress saw a bunch of young black women and assumed we weren't going to tip, and she treated us based off of that. And in that moment, it's like funny how those little moments hit you. But in that moment, I really like, mind you, me and all my friends tip. We tip based off service. So if you give good service, you'll get good tips. Meaning, like, she could have got, like, there was 5 or 6 of us, so she could have got $5 or $10 from each person. Like, so she could have got clinked up on tips. And we ate very little. It was just, girl time. But in that moment, it makes you angry because you're like, my money, I'm spending just the same amount of money as everybody else, but you're treating me a certain way because of stereotypes that you put on me that I had absolutely nothing to do with me. And so I think that was like one of the first like moments where I stopped like the angry Black woman thing. And because I realized how much as a Black woman, I was policing myself.
Yeah.
And I realized how much like I won't allow myself to do this, or if I'm receiving trash service, I won't allow myself to speak because I don't want to seem like I'm causing an issue. To the point to where like I was getting my nails done a couple weeks ago, and I had to be the angry Black woman in there because I was speaking and saying this is not what I want, and it was going in one ear out the other. So I think that kind of set the tone for me to be like, you're gonna place whatever stereotypes on me that you feel like you're gonna do. It has absolutely nothing to do with who I am as a person. I grew up more of like the alternative Black girl. So it's a lot of like Black references I get, some I don't. Like, so it's when dealing with people, you get just, like, especially as a Black woman, it's so many stereotypes and negative stereotypes that you get put on you that I was just like, I'm gonna let people view me how they view me. My resume says a certain thing, the way I present myself says a certain thing. And if you can't look past that, that has absolutely nothing to do with me. And what is for me is mine, and what's not is not. And so if you close that door, that just means another one's gonna open somewhere else in a better environment or better situation. Like I said, like I say nigga to like the Black folks and the certain Black people, in the office. But I don't typically curse because I just don't think it's professional. As a whole. So it doesn't have to do with the fact of like code switching for me. It's just like the white woman, like they would curse and it would slip here and there. But for the most part, I feel like professional looks a certain way. So I don't code switch. I'm just professional because I'm in a professional environment. Not like I'm trying to like dilute myself for white people because I'm in a white space.
But I also want to add that it's okay to play the game a little bit as well too, because
of course.
Oh yeah, but I want to give an example of my wife because when she first go on an interview, the wig is coming on, but as soon as she gets the job and walk through the door, it's natural hair all day, every day, and that's how she rolls.
And I get that, but especially for me, like my hair is such like. I was permed most of my life. And I guess it's a different thing. I was like, I had perms, my hair was straight. So even me like cutting my hair off, it's very like sacred. And when I do wear my hair, like it's a part of who I am. So it's like, if you can't accept my hair for the way it is, you're not accepting me for what I am. And Black, there is a stigma when it comes to Black men, because I've heard it from Black men for their natural hair wearing in the workplace. But for Black women, like literally me just wearing my hair just the way it is like a sign of rebellion. And it's not rebellion for me, it's like self-love. So if you can't like, it's like an extension of myself. And like I've played the game, I've done that, but it's like I'm just at the point to where I'm not going to, because me wearing my hair in a high puff doesn't make it any less professional than a white woman wearing her hair in a dirty in a whatever bun. You know, it's like there's no difference. And if you see a difference, then you know that's completely on you, and that's a representation of how you are and how you're gonna treat me being in that position.
Absolutely.
So branching out a little bit from the workplace, you know, because obviously in the workplace, those are kind of situations that you're kind of forced into. I mean, like you signed up to be into the job or whatever, but you don't get to choose your coworkers. You don't get to choose who you deal with at work. But in terms of like your friends and your personal life, I know that for me, I grew up at the time, it was probably about 50-50 between white people and minorities in high school. But on my football team, I had a very distinct group of friends. One was my white friends and one was my black friends. Did y'all have like I guess in y'all's lives now, do y'all have like a similar experience where you feel like you got like your white friends that you hang out with and like you give them, I guess, professional whoever or black person? And I see y'all Shar making a face at me. So let me preface.
Are always making a face.
Always making a face. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. So like for me, it's like when I'm with my white friends, it's not that I'm like professional. I still say everything, but I don't bring up like certain issues. Like I'm not going to talk about the debate like with my white friends. It's just like
I'm with you.
You know, I don't feel like having
I don't have
that
white
conversation.
friends that I can't talk to about issues.
Okay.
See, no, that's
yeah. I'm the same way. I don't have white friends I can't talk to about stuff like this.
Yeah, like my white friends be posting Black Lives Matter and then like arguing with their aunts and their uncles about how they racist. So I don't have that kind of white friends. I just don't. I mean, I did at one point, but you know,
you kind of evolve.
Yeah, you evolve past it.
Your circles change as you get older. So like what you tolerated like when you're younger, when you're older, you now have downgraded them to like associates. So you wouldn't call them a friend. They wouldn't be a person that you interact with at that level. You know them, you've known of them, you've been around them, but like if they're not on the same par with you, it's kind of like they're not in that friend.
So before the whole Black Lives Matter movement and everything like that, would you guys have, and this is all me assuming, so if you guys aren't Democrats or liberal or not Republicans, then let me know. But like, were you guys able to have friends with like Republicans? You know, like, because that's all of my friends and that all of the people that I was talking about, I knew that they were Republican when I was in high school. Like, you know, I live in Gwinnett County, Brookwood, all the white people over there is Republican essentially. So, you know, I knew who they were but they weren't like racist. Like, I mean, at least when I didn't notice any racist shit while I was growing up. Now, when I went to college and I started taking these political science classes and kind of like waking up my head, you know, I start checking their asses on some shit, you know, like I'll be like, hey, that's not cool no more. You know, we're not doing that. That's dead. And they respected it. And so like the ones that didn't respect it, just like y'all said, dead, like y'all exist, but somewhere else, right? But the people who they respect you enough to hear your outcries, your grievances or what may have you. And not only do they hear them, but they address them and make the change. Like to me, that I feel like that's even if it's like not a political understanding, it's at least a respect. Like they at least they respect you enough to make that change, even if they're, you know, saying wild shit with their friends. And I don't know if they are or not, but I assume that they aren't because they don't with me. So I don't know if that changes your perspective at all.
But I think we have to preface by saying it's not before Black Lives Matter. I think it's before Trump. So I think
I'm glad you said that. Yeah.
Before Trump, then you could probably be friends with Republicans. Like, to be honest, I grew up in all black areas. So I ain't had white friends like that until I joined the fraternity. Like, I went to a HBCU, so I went to all black areas. So I didn't have white friends like that. My first time being around white people, I was a kid, and it was in this big house, and I thought all white people lived like this. I was like, this is great. Yeah. But I think it's a change when you're talking about Trump, Republican, because I didn't even know if they were Republican. I couldn't tell you if they were Republican not until Trump happened. So I think Trump has empowered people to be this racist to be this outspoken. And I think that's the friend that you can. And I don't care white or black. If you are a Trump supporter, that's a person I can't hang around, Republican or not.
I can't think of, like, even when the whole Trump became who he is, like all my friends who are white, like they were still on the same, like, nah, you know, it was that was never like a switch for us because we had a basic understanding. But I'm also very outspoken about who I am, what I believe in, and those type of things. So I don't tend to hang around people who I don't feel like match those same type of energies. And like the whole Republican thing doesn't matter to me either because like there are plenty of liberal white people who are racist. So when we talk about like Republican liberal, like I've been around a bunch of, especially white women. White women, liberal women are worse than Trump supporters. And I don't care what nobody says, because at least I'd rather know that they're racist. And for you to be in my face and then I'd be like, what? You know, like, no. So it's not really like the Republican. My friends haven't changed. Like I've had the same white friends pretty much. I mean, I have new white friends now and they too are on fuck Trump. So.
But I want to add something that Hobson said that I think we as black folks probably made a mistake on, because when we look at Trump, like we just look at Trump and like that just races go off in our mind. But I think one of the mistakes that we made as black people is that we categorize every Republican individuals as racist. So when you look at previous candidates like a Bush or a Romney or any of those candidates or a McCain, I mean, they pale in comparison when we look at, you know, the people that we have in office today. Mm-hmm. So those individuals may not have a full understanding of our culture, but we may have just kind of categorized them as racist just because they were considered to be Republicans. So to kind of touch on what Darryl was saying, we do have that tendency to kind of lump racism and Republicans into the same category. Let me clarify by saying I'm not Republican.
Ed don't seem convinced.
I just want to clarify that, but
he has to say this all the time. Like
because it's not a very Republican-ish what I was saying, so I want to clarify that at first. But I think but to that point, I think we got to start looking at individuals beyond their party lines and kind of look at them based off their actions. Because your actions speak on you being racist more than your party, in my opinion.
Yeah, and me and Hobson had this conversation because we talked about how like I don't deem this one because somebody's a white person's Republican. I don't think they're racist. Like realistically, if you're white and you got money, it makes sense to vote Republican because you're gonna get some tax breaks. I mean, exactly. from a business perspective. But it's like once you get into the point to where you're like, are you a Trump supporter? Like, do you believe in the Trump supporter ideals? Like, that's a whole different argument. Because I understand why people are fiscally like Republican. Like, it makes sense. If you got money, you want the tax breaks. Like, you know, it's to me. But when you add the racism around it, and are you pro people, or are you like okay with dividing folks? Like, that's a whole different conversation.
And yeah, I agree completely. Like, I don't think that everyone does Trump. Everyone does throw everyone as like a Republican as being racist. I think there's a majority of people that are not really educated on the breakdowns of the different parties. They might do that. Me, myself, I have people that are Black that are Republicans. I'm cool with that. I have people that are white that are Republicans. I'm cool with that. I think the line in the sand is when you start to make excuses for Trump and his behavior, what he said and those statements and the things that he does, that's where there's an issue with you. And that's where I'm questioning whether or not you're also racist, because I believe that Trump is racist. I think if you do racist things, make racist statements, you're racist, period, until your actions prove differently.
Just to add one more thing, and Darryl says this all the time, like a lot of, and Darryl, this is Darryl, I think, favorite phrase, not favorite phrase, but a lot of Black individuals probably would be Republican if they care a lot more about Black issues, because Republicans necessarily do not, from a social perspective, represent what Black people are looking for or need right now. Probably from a religious or fiscal responsibility, it's probably more aligned with what Black people want, but they can't cross that line only because of the social issues where they're not making those movements of understanding why we as Black folks are saying Black Lives Matter and then those things. So I got that's important to add as well. So.
Yeah. Well, let me say what I was saying was, and it counts what Shar Embry was saying. If it was strictly about money, a lot of us would be Republican. But the reason we're not is because it's a morality issue. I told, and I'm interested how you feel about this. If Republicans cleaned up this part of it about social injustice, Black Lives Matter, if they cleaned up that, I believe it would probably be a mass exodus from Democrats to Republicans if they just cleaned up their morality issue. Now, of course, Trump got to go. But if they put a hard stance on injustice, Black Lives Matter, if they would march with us instead of against us, I believe especially heterosexual Black males would move over to the Republicans.
Yes, 100%, 120%, I agree. Black males would jump ship so quick, it would be crazy. But I would say that I think educated Black women and educated Black males would stick with the Democratic Party. And I only say that because a lot of the fiscal policies that allow tax breaks and things of that nature are oppressive economically to the lower class, which is thus oppressive to Black people.
Right.
So, you know, it's like the fiscal, if you got the money, yeah, but most Black people don't got the money. So it's like, you know, but
especially too as a Black woman, like I said, if it was just a money thing, but then it's like not only is the Black thing, it's the woman thing, because that's a whole nother.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I wanted to clean up Char.
They got a lot of cleaning up for me to be like, you know.
That's why I wanted to clean it up with Char. It wasn't Black people, it was Black males.
Yeah, that's what our conversation. Yeah, but so, to your point, they have a lot to clean up before any Black person goes anywhere. Is what we're saying. Yeah.
So this will be the last question on the personal aspect, but we talked a little bit about how white people's lack of understanding of Black culture can lead to some of these misunderstandings. You know, I guess we'll call them. And I think it's interesting to distinguish, because Ed, you talked a little bit about how, like, if a white person could justify something that Trump says, then that's when that question like pops up in your head, right? Is that racism? How do you distinguish between if it's racism and if it's just ignorance? Because, you know, the first time that I went to Lehigh is like 5% Black, whole bunch of rich white kids. Trump's nephew went to the school. But I met a kid and he told me that I was the first Black person that he had ever seen in person. Like, he had seen people on TV and all that, and like, he had, like, you know, looked it up on the internet or whatever, but he had never like interacted with a Black person in a physical sense. And, you know, like me, I came from a very diverse childhood. So I'm like, what do you mean? Like, there's no Black people on your, like, at the store, like nowhere? And he's just like, nah. And so it's like, I could, and obviously this, if y'all have listened to the episode, you know, Woke and Restless is not one to be Mr. White sympathy and like, you know, forgive and forget all this. But I could understand how that white person could hear something that Trump says and be like, there's no way that he could mean that, you know, like when Trump said we should get rid of the diversity training. I don't know the exact words that he used, but said the diversity training was racist. Like, I could see a white person hearing that and being like, there has to be something wrong with the program. He wouldn't just say, like, you know, that doesn't even make any sense. But that's bred not from a place of like malice necessarily, but a place of just, I just don't know. And at one point do we like say, you don't know so much that we're leaving you behind and we just don't care?
It's their willingness to be able to take in the information. So like, I believe like, cause I mean, I'm one of those people, I have all kinds of friends. So I judge people based off of like who they are as a person, not like what you look like, your sexual orientation. No, I don't care. And I have white friends who ask me questions. They'll be like, I don't mean to be like disrespectful, but I don't know, you know, or like I put a post one day about my hair and one of my white friends was just like, I know this wasn't for me, but thank you because I don't really understand, you know, Black hair. So I think when they're coming from a place of trying to understand, that's one thing. I think, man, you had a conversation before too, where I feel like Southern white people, because white people don't have to live in the same reality that we live in, that sometimes things happen and they try to excuse things because in their mind, there's no way. I don't inherently think white people are bad. I think there's systems put and there's conditioning that happens. So if it's a white person who like, they don't live a certain reality, when they're looking at it, they're like, well, why would they do that? You know, like when we say certain stuff and it's just like, well, he killed him because he was black. And they'd be like, well, why would he do that? Like there has to be another reason. And it's like, no, that is the reason. And for somebody who doesn't live our reality, to them, that doesn't make sense. So I think sometimes they're just trying to like wrap their head around, and I feel like a lot of people, white people are doing it, even though we've been saying it. But now I think they're starting to like wrap their head. So it's like that point of, are you just sticking in your ignorance, or are you actually trying to inform yourself? And right, if you're not trying to, if you're asking questions, not necessarily asking questions, if you're responding to argue with me rather than to listen, then I don't have anything else to say.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think the biggest thing is the communication. Like you have a conversation with that person and see where they're coming from first. And then you make a determination from that conversation. So if you say something and then they ask you a question towards it and you have a reply and they're like, okay, maybe I get it or whatever, or you have a healthy conversation, then you can gauge that they may not be racist. Mm-hmm. But then when they start doing the whole rebuttal and all the other shit that goes along with you want to justify certain things, then you understand their true nature.
I think the person has to have an understanding of what things are considered racist or what things are offensive, period. And I think that we talk about, okay, well, if you become complicit, you can be uneducated, you can be ignorant about something. At the moment that you have been taught, you have been told, and you continue that behavior, you're now just moving blatantly into racism, right? Mm-hmm. Can you change later on? Yes, I think people can change from being racist to not being racist. It's not easy, especially if it's something that's deeply rooted and that's how you grew up. But I think at the point where you have been given the opportunity to understand someone else's perspective, their life, their culture, how they live, how they're viewed, their perspective, and you completely ignore it and continue with what you think is right, and you've gone into racism.
Yeah.
And then I guess
also,
I would think, go ahead.
I would just think that white people need to find, and first of all, they need to meet black people and be around them to be able to have a relationship with somebody, to be freely to ask the question. So I have a white friend, and she asks me. She doesn't ask anything crazy, but she asks me because she doesn't understand, and we actually have a conversation about it. So they have to be, I don't want to say we don't need to get in the back to teaching people anything, but we have to sometimes have difficult conversation and kind of explain to them why this is, and they have to be open to hearing that and not just trying to be defensive and trying to listen to respond, but listen to just understand and empathize at any way they can. So finding a black person is a great way to start.
Got one.
Finding a black person. Way to start.
Go ahead, Shar.
No, you pretty much took the words out of my mouth. Is that, you know, we, like you said, it's not our responsibility to teach the world about being black, but at the same time, we have to be open to the concept of understanding that people do not understand who we are as a culture. And also to add to Bree's comments, we live in their world. So unfortunately, we have to learn how to operate in order for us to survive. Unfortunately, they don't have to worry about doing that. So that's part of the reason why we probably have that anger of, why do I have to explain myself to you? But if someone kind of comes to the point where they want to learn because they genuinely don't understand, then we in a sense do have a responsibility to try to like help them understand like where we're coming from or why our culture is the way it is, you know. So
now, I disagree with just one thing that you said. I think we do have a responsibility in teaching people about how Black people are. I think it's our responsibility to push the narrative around who Black people are. That's our responsibility.
Yeah, I agree.
The issue is that we've allowed for so long for people to tell us how we should operate. And we need to be in the position of saying, this is a Black person. No, a Black person is a person that's out on the street, that's selling drugs. A Black person isn't a person that's always angry. A Black person isn't a person that uses slang, is not educated, cannot think about, you know, the environment and other topics, cannot have a intelligent conversation. That is not a Black person. So I think it's important that we take that position and start to make our own description. I think that's
right. I agree with Ed, because in the simple fact, like we stand by so long and watch a narrative be portrayed about us through the media, through TV, through everything, and it's been. And so when other people see it, they assume that all Black people are that way, or we're supposed to be that way. So that's how you get the stereotypes, and that's how you get people feeling like, oh, I should cross the street just because he looks a certain way, or I need to clutch my bag because he looks a certain way. But not understanding that most of us are well educated, we're well spoken, we actually can have conversations. Yeah, I like rap music, but I also can talk about politics.
Who doesn't? A lot of white people like rap music. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I mean, but you understand what I'm saying? Like you get portrayed as a thug because the media portrayed you as a thug.
Yeah.
As ignorant. You can only be an athlete, a rapper, or a drug dealer.
But with that, I mean, that's an excuse too, because I don't care if you are in the middle of Iowa. Your perception of Black people should expand beyond being a rapper. You know what I'm saying? Like, I
feel like you should, but like one of my white friends, she grew up in North Carolina, one of the Carolinas, right? Like, she said the only Black people that she like knew, like they were all related, and she didn't go to school with them until high school. So then she got to college. She went to some school, it was diverse, and that was her first time really being around Black people. And she didn't realize that a lot of stuff that she had like been taught was racist. Wow. So to the point to where she was just like, oh my God, and she stopped, saying certain things or whatever. And she had a boyfriend who refused, like she told him like, that's not okay. Like, we don't say that. And she left him because she was like, I'm not about to be with somebody who's racist. So I feel like if you're in a particular area, it is completely possible before 2020. I'm gonna give it to him before. At this point, like, if you, there's enough information. Like, who don't have internet?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you have the opportunity where you can go and educate yourself. If you're choosing to remain, at this point, ignorance is a choice. If you're choosing to remain ignorant, that don't have nothing to do with me, and I'm not gonna sit there and have conversations with you.
Absolutely.
So big facts. I like that. That's that good energy to end that segment off on. Lastly, and this will probably be our shortest one because I know we're running up here on time, but romantic sense. Obviously, like, this is kind of like the final portion of our discussion. But I guess the first question, have you guys been in interracial relationships? Have you considered being in interracial relationships? Is it something that, and I know that, I have a significant other. I know Daryl's married, Shar's married, and Raw got a fiance. So I'm not considering now, but would you consider getting into a relationship, with a white person? Obviously, hypothetically, just for your significant others.
I've never had a serious relationship with a white female, but I've talked to white females. It'll probably never happen again. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but at this point, I don't see it happening because I might end up dead.
I don't know. Actually, I think I would entertain it. But I think my issue with being a gay Black male is that with gay men, it's like a fetish. So it's hard to want to try to date someone that's white because they're fetishizing you most of the time. So it's like, I don't want to be in that situation. I'm not here for your entertainment or consumption in that way. So I'm open to dating white men. I think it would have to be a certain type of white man. But
you have to own a yacht, Javi.
He has to own a yacht.
So we can be on the yacht.
Yeah. Javi, just let you know that our chances of getting on the yacht is all behind Ed at this point. So
he needs a yacht. Yeah. But I would say that my experiences was, first of all, my mom, growing up, again, I grew up in all Black area. My mom was extremely pro-Black. I had to read Driving While Black before I could learn how to drive. I had a bunch of Black history books. My mom was so pro-Black, and I tell the guys this on the podcast, we had a Santa picture. My mom colored it in brown. So that's how serious she was.
My mama didn't buy a white Santas.
Yeah. So you know. So you know. So we always went to South DeKalb Mall because that's where the Black Santa was growing up. Like, my mom didn't play that. So I grew up where my mom was like not having dating white people. Like she wasn't having that. Now, as I got older, I'm like raw. I talked to one just one time, but I've never dated it. But even then, it's still a culture clash. It's a huge culture clash where they don't understand. She didn't understand my music. She didn't understand how I talk. She didn't understand slang. It was still such a huge culture clash, and it almost was like she didn't want me around her family.
Yeah.
Because that she probably didn't know how they were going to react to me. Which was the first time I dealt with that, being I was all in black areas. This is the first time I've ever even came up as an issue.
Yeah. So I remember in the 8th grade, I dated a white girl, and I remember I told my parents, and my mom cried, and I was so confused. Like,
that would have been my mom.
I think it was like my first, official girlfriend, but we were in the 8th grade, so like realistically, we was like holding hands in the hallway and shit, like, you know, nothing really. But you know, she cried, and like my dad had this long talk with me, and I was like, I'm sitting here, and I'm just like, wow, what's going on? But you know, as I grew older, I got into college, and like I did experience that, like, to a certain extent, a lot of the interracial relationship thrives off of that fetishization. Like that is a huge part of it. Even like, you know, like the black football players at Lehigh, they got one sort of treatment compared to like the black kids who were clearly not football players, right? Like the black kids who were clearly not football players got no love on the white side of campus. And it's like, I mean, like the basketball players and like athletes and stuff, sure, but like, you know, the regular white kid or black kids, it's like, so y'all just want the ones that look like Odell, and like, you know, the ones who y'all think about to go to the league because that's all y'all got access to right now. And you know, that made me think back to when my mom was crying, and she wasn't crying because she, you know, she actually ended up liking the girl's family, and like she thought she was a nice girl, but it was just more so like, you know, your first relationship, and you there was no black women, like black girls that you could find that were pretty enough for you. Like that's what she was feeling, and of course that wasn't like my energy. That's not what I meant. But like I understood, like, and even now, like I understand. Dang, like there's no black woman that you could find. There's not one that can fulfill those things for you. And I understand that sentiment. Not to say that I'm against interracial relationships or anything like that, but I do understand that, like, with, you know, there's 50 million black people in America. 50 million. You tried how many? Like, what, 10, 15? Like, you know, give another one a shot. Maybe it'll work out. But do y'all hear that kind of like battle between black men and black women? Because I feel like a lot of the things we see that's I know this is kind of like I'm not gonna make it too hot. I'm not gonna make it too hot. I promise. Y'all didn't even let me finish the question. But like me and Bria actually have talked about it. But the relationships that are portrayed, like the representation that's portrayed in the media, a lot of the time you'll have a black man, and then boom, romantic interest, white woman. A lot of the time you'll have a black one, and Bria feels like it's more so a black man with a white woman, and I feel like it's more so black woman with a white male.
Black women are rarely the love interest in stuff. Like, let's clarify that from a black movie. Mm-hmm. Black women typically are not the love interest, or if they are, they're typically biracial. That's a whole nother thing.
Oh, and we talked about that actually. Me and my wife, we were watching Black as Fuck, Black AF, and we got to the conversation that even in the black shows, how many of the women are fair skinned, and
that's the thing too. Is like, I'm light skinned, so I know, like, half the time, sometimes when I talk about stuff, people are looking at me like, what? But I'm a light skinned black woman. I'm not biracial. Right. And I'm a light skinned, and there's a difference too. I'm a light skinned black woman with like very textured hair. So the women that typically are like the love interest typically look a certain way. So even if they're fair skinned, they have the very like mixed girl hair. So like, yeah.
But
No,
even
and I got a preference because my wife, y'all met my wife. She's very light skinned, and I always have to prep. But she even for her, and she's full black. Her parents are both black. She's just very light skinned. But she even sees it. So we even had these conversations that, man, there is never. I think the only thing was mixed-ish was her mom was dark skinned in the show. But other than that, we had to think back, like, what was the last time a dark black woman was like the lead in a show?
Yeah,
like
I say, it rarely happens. And when it
Family
does,
Matters and Family Matters,
a black movie, you know?
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air before they switched to...
Yeah, but you got to go back to the 90s.
That's like so far away.
The one with Lakeith.
No,
but people look at it as a black movie. See, that's the problem.
Oh, that's
Anytime a black woman is a lead, it's typically a black movie. It's not just a movie.
Right.
Like, how often are black women the lead? Like actual, and I hate to use that, but there's a difference between biracial and then a black woman. How often is it an actual black woman who is the lead?
Only thing I think of is Sonic the Hedgehog.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Sonic, you didn't see the movie?
No, I
we gotta watch that.
Sonic movie, no.
But
but back to I personally don't date white men. A part of the reason why I don't date white men is because I am extremely fetishized, but I'm fetishized by men as a whole because people automatically assume that I'm mixed. So I typically, why are you making the faces? Sorry. I typically don't, like and I'm from Texas and I'm from Houston and I grew up in racism. Like from a very young age, I was like, well, that's racist and that's not okay. You know, but it's just between the culture clash and then in me being in my blackness, like I can say that a white man's attractive, but nothing has that same like, I guess, lust towards a white man that I do black men, because they talk about like you want a black man, like we come in such like the phenotype of black doesn't exist. Like it's such a spectrum. So no matter what I would want, you know, like if you say we want this, you can get that in a black man. I dated a guy, he was mixed. And that was an entirely interesting experience because his mom was white and his dad was black and he grew up in Alaska. So he was very white.
He was removed.
It was like a whole different, just some of the stuff like even though he was technically black, he's mixed, but that black is still there. He was so accustomed to more like white culture that our personalities didn't even make sense, and he's biracial. So like even me doing that, like that was my test to like see like if I could help. No.
Wow.
No, that reminds me.
I will clarify. I've never dated a white.
Maybe we should, Edward. We need that yacht.
Yeah, we told you what we need, man.
But let me say, I wanted to bring up real quick. My brother lives in Canada right now. He's half white too, and I brought this up on my podcast. He was supposed to come down for my wedding and everything, but he didn't because of COVID. But one thing he said was, "I can't wait to come down and be with my black family." And I was like,
"Dude, don't introduce it like that."
Yeah, we're just your family. We're not black family, but he does need to see. That culture, he needs to come in.
So speaking of that, my little cousin, she's mixed. So my two little cousins, they're mixed, and they grew up primarily with more of us, so they're more like black. And my uncle, he's the one that he's the white people dater. I hate to say it like that in the family, but he married a white woman. Mm-hmm. Her daughter is biracial, but she grew up with white people. So when she got around us, it was like culture shock, because she's like, "Y'all are pretty loud." And I was like, "Yeah, girl, we black, we talk." So used to like, and we went to like, you start mixing birthday parties, and we walk into the room, and we the niggas in the room, and it's just quiet. I'm like, it's a birthday party. Why y'all not loud? Like, it's like, but she's having identity because she's like, well, I'm black, I'm too black, and I mean, I experienced that, but it's different when you're biracial. She's like, I'm too white for the black kids, and I'm too black, so I've been having to navigate through that. But one of the things that I found interesting is with my uncle dating white women, so he's married to her now. The whole use of that's like, do you use nigga in the workspace? But basically, I think I said nigga something in front of his wife, And that was before she was a wife, and my Nana, which is my grandmother, just kind of looked at me. She was like, "Do you think we should say that?" And I was like, "Nana, she bringing her white behind into a black space. I'm not going to say what I'm going to say in my house."
That's real right there.
And it's like, because even like, I want to make her feel comfortable. I'm like, well, she don't feel comfortable being around a black family, then she don't need to marry a black man.
Exactly.
But it's like that generational difference, because I told you I don't care. No. If I don't code switch, I'm sure I'm not code switching in my grandma's house. But it's like, it's a thing. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. And my mama was like, no, we not. So
yeah, that's how it is. But with that, unless y'all got any other topics that y'all would like to touch on, I think we about ready to wrap it up. Obviously, we appreciate everybody who's gonna tune in and watch this. We'll talk about when we're going to release it once we stop recording.
Can we give our platform, Hobson?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead, hit it, Ed.
Oh, it's the
they got a song. Is this like a little jingle y'all got?
No, not a jingle.
Really?
I was excited.
Nah, go ahead, Shamor.
Okay. We are on Instagram at Less of a Man Podcast. We are on YouTube at The Less of a Man Podcast. We are on Twitter. I think our Twitter is Less of a Man. We are on Anchor. We are on Apple. What else are we on? We're on SoundCloud. Spotify. So click on the links below. I'm guessing we have links below.
Yeah, we're going to have links below. We got to do better at the wrap up.
Oh my God.
You're terrible at this, bro.
So
that's why I referred to Ed. See?
That's what you get when you let Black Republicans be on the show.
Goodness gracious. Taking shots. But anyway, make sure y'all go check out my people's page, their podcast, follow, like, share, all that great stuff. You can check us out at Woke and Restless on Facebook, Woke and Restless, at Woke and Restless on Instagram, at Woke_N_Restless on Twitter, because somebody stole our shit on Twitter. But we're also available on all major streaming networks, so y'all can search us up. Make sure y'all share it with a friend, and if y'all like this, make sure y'all share it and get it out there. We appreciate y'all for tuning in, and stay happy.
Peace.
Deuce. Appreciate y'all.